I was closing up the restaurant where I worked. This was a few years ago, New Year's Eve. We're a small place, Italian food, family-owned. We'd had a private party that night that ran late. The owner let them stay past our normal closing time because they were spending good money, and it was a holiday. The party finally cleared out around 11:30. By the time we got everyone out and started cleaning, it was 11:45. Everyone else wanted to get to their own New Year's plans, so the owner told them they could go. He asked if I minded locking up by myself. I said no, it was fine. I'd closed alone before. He gave me the keys and left, so it was just me. I had maybe 30 minutes of work left, wiping down tables, sweeping, taking out trash, and counting the register. Normal closing stuff. I wasn't in a rush. I was in the kitchen finishing up when I decided to take the trash out. We had a dumpster in the back alley. I grabbed the bags and went out the back door, tossed everything in, and came back inside. That's when I heard something in the dining room. Sounded like chairs moving. That scraping sound chairs make on the floor. I walked out to the dining room and looked around. All the chairs were pushed in at the tables, exactly how I'd left them after wiping everything down. I checked anyway, walked between the tables, and looked at each one. Everything was fine. I figured I was just tired. After a long shift, I assumed I was just hearing things. The building's old, it makes sounds. I went back to finish closing. I was in the office counting out the register when I heard it again. Footsteps this time. Someone walking around the dining room. Normal footsteps. I stopped counting. I sat there and listened. The footsteps continued. I could hear them clearly. I opened the desk drawer and grabbed the baseball bat we kept there. The owner kept it for security, in case anyone tried to break in or cause trouble. I walked out of the office and into the dining room. Nobody there. I checked the whole room. Looked under tables, checked the bathroom, looked in the kitchen. Nobody. But when I came back to the dining room, one of the chairs was pulled out. Table 7, right in the middle of the room. I know I'd pushed all the chairs in. I'd just walked through here. They were all pushed in. I went to the front door. Locked. I checked the back door. Also locked. I was the only one with keys. The owner had the other set, and he'd already gone home. I pushed the chair back in. I stood there for a minute, trying to think of an explanation. Maybe I'd forgotten to push that one in. Maybe I'd walked past it and bumped it without noticing. But I knew that wasn't true. I'd pushed them all in. I remembered doing it. I went back to the office. I brought the bat with me this time. I finished counting the register, filled out the closing paperwork, and put everything in the safe. I kept stopping to listen. The restaurant was completely quiet now. No footsteps, no chairs moving, nothing. I checked my phone. 11:57. 3 minutes to midnight. I just wanted to finish and get out of there. I put my coat on and grabbed my keys. I was getting ready to leave when I heard it. All the chairs are moving at once. Not one at a time. All of them. That scraping sound, but multiplied. Like someone had grabbed every single chair in the restaurant and pulled them all out from the tables in one motion. I didn't go look. I grabbed my bag and I walked straight to the front door. I unlocked it and went outside, and I locked it behind me. I just walked to my car, got in, and drove home. My hands were shaking when I was driving. I kept checking the rearview mirror like something was going to be following me. Nothing was there. It was just a normal drive home. Quiet streets, a few people setting off fireworks. Normal New Year's Eve. I got home, and I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. I kept thinking about those chairs. the sound of all of them moving at the same time. I kept trying to come up with an explanation. Maybe it was an earthquake. Maybe the floor had shifted. But I would have felt that. And it wouldn't have sounded like that. The next morning, I got a call from the opener, Sarah, one of the day shift girls. She asked me why I'd left all the chairs pulled out. I asked her what she meant. She said when she came in to open, every single chair in the dining room was pulled away from the tables. She thought I'd forgotten to put them back after cleaning. I didn't know what to say. I told her I must have forgotten. She said it was weird because I'd never done that before, and it seemed like a lot to forget. I just said I'd been tired. I went in for my next shift 2 days later. Everything was normal. Lunch service, dinner service, and normal closing. Nothing strange. But I kept looking at table 7, the chair I'd found pulled out. I kept thinking about it. I worked there for 2 more weeks. I picked up a few more closing shifts because we were short-staffed, and the owner asked me to help out. Every time I closed, right around midnight, I'd hear something. Not always chairs. Sometimes it was footsteps. Sometimes it was the sound of plates clinking in the kitchen. One time I heard the front door open and close, but when I checked, it was still locked. I never saw anything. It was always just sounds. But they were always around midnight, just at midnight or right around it. I put in my 2-week notice after that. I told the owner I'd gotten a better job offer, which wasn't true. I just couldn't keep working there. He was disappointed, but he understood. He asked if everything was okay, and I said, yeah, everything was fine. I ran into Sarah a few months later. We got coffee and caught up. I asked her if anything weird had ever happened to her when she was closing. She looked at me strange and asked what I meant. I said like noises or things being moved around. She said no, never. She asked if something had happened to me. I told her no, I was just curious. But I think she knew I was lying. She had this look on her face like she wanted to ask more questions, but she didn't. We changed the subject and talked about other things. I still drive past that restaurant sometimes. It's still open, still doing business. I see people eating there through the windows. It looks normal, like nothing's wrong. And maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe I was just tired that night. Maybe I did forget to push the chairs in. Maybe I imagined the footsteps. But I know what I heard. I heard all those chairs move at once. And the next morning, they were all pulled out. Sarah saw them. That part isn't something I imagined. I don't know what was in that restaurant. I don't know if it's still there. But I know I'm never going back to find out. This happened in Baton Rouge, at an apartment I was renting near LSU. It was one of those older buildings, maybe 4 stories, mostly students and younger people. New Year's Eve that year, most people in the building had gone somewhere, home to see family or out to parties. I stayed because I'd worked a double shift at the restaurant where I was waiting tables, and I was completely exhausted. I got home around 9:30, and I just crashed on the couch. I didn't even make it to my bedroom. I had the TV on, but I wasn't really watching it. I fell asleep sometime around 10:30, maybe earlier. I don't remember exactly. I woke up to someone knocking on my door, not pounding or anything aggressive, just normal knocking. I sat up and grabbed my phone off the coffee table. It was 11:58, 2 minutes to midnight. I got up and went to the door. I looked through the peephole. There was a man standing in the hallway. Older guy, maybe in his 50s. He was wearing a suit, dark suit, white shirt, tie, like he'd been at some formal event. He was just standing there, not looking at the door, looking down the hallway toward the stairs. He knocked again. I didn't recognize him. I'd lived in that building for almost a year, and I knew most of my neighbors by sight. I'd never seen this guy before. I called through the door and asked who it was. He turned and looked at the door, right at the peephole, like he knew I was watching. He said he was locked out of his apartment, and he needed to use a phone. I told him I could call someone for him, but I wasn't opening the door. He didn't say anything for a few seconds. He just kept looking at the door. Then he said, "It's almost midnight." I said, "Yeah, I know, and I could call the building manager or maintenance for him." He shook his head. He said, "I need to be inside when it happens." I stepped back from the door. Something about the way he said it. He knocked again, harder this time. He said, "Please, I can't be out here at midnight." I had my phone in my hand. I pulled up 911, but I haven't called yet. I didn't know what I'd say. There's a man knocking on my door asking to come in. That doesn't sound like an emergency, but I kept my thumb over the call button just in case. I went back to the peephole. He was still there, still staring at the door. His hands were at his sides. He wasn't holding anything. No keys, no phone, nothing. If he was really locked out, where was his stuff? I asked him what apartment he lived in. He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the door. Then he said it again. "I need to be inside when it happens." I could hear fireworks starting outside. Someone down the street setting off the early ones. I checked my phone. 11:59. 1 minute. The man was still standing there. He raised his hand and knocked again. He said, "Please." More fireworks outside. Closer now. People shouting somewhere in the building. A countdown is starting. Someone had their TV up loud. 10, 9, 8. The man turned his head, looked down the hallway again, toward the stairs. He was listening to the countdown. 7, 6, 5. I was still at the peephole. I don't know why I didn't move away. I just kept watching him. 4, 3, 2, 1. More fireworks. Midnight. The man stood there for a second. Then he turned and walked away. Gone. I waited at the peephole. I counted to 60 in my head. Then I counted to 60 again. Nothing. No sound in the hallway. I unlocked the door and opened it just enough to look out. The hallway was empty. I checked the stairwell door. It was closed. I didn't open it. I went back into my apartment and locked the door. Put the chain on. I sat on the couch and I tried to think through what had just happened. If he was really locked out, why did he leave? Where did he go? And why did he keep saying he needed to be inside at midnight? Inside where? His apartment? My apartment? Any apartment? The next morning, I went down to the building manager's office. I asked if anyone had reported being locked out the night before. He checked his notes and his phone messages. Nobody had called. Nobody had reported anything. I described the man, the suit, the age, everything I could remember. The manager said it didn't sound like anyone in the building. He asked if the guy had tried to force his way in or threatened me. I said no. He just knocked and asked to come inside. The manager said it was probably someone from one of the New Year's parties who got confused about which building they lived in. Maybe. But this guy wasn't drunk. He wasn't confused. He was very specific about what he wanted, and he left right at midnight. I moved out of that apartment about 6 months later. Not because of that night, just because my lease was up and I found a cheaper place. But I still think about it sometimes. I'm glad I didn't open that door.